All right, for our first session of the day, we're going to get a 5G market outlook courtesy of Stéphane Téral, Chief Analyst with LightCounting.
Thank you very much, Sean, and thank you for having me here. This work is also a contribution of my teammate, Steliana Baleva, Principal Analyst at LightCounting, and I'm Stéphane Téral, Chief Analyst, ready to go with trying to find out where the 5G money is. And the good news is you'll see there is some 5G money to look at and to collect. And this is in Region 1, R1. So this is a piece of work that was performed back at the beginning of this century by Bell Labs, which is now at Nokia. So the researchers tried to map out the possibilities of the next generation of cellular technologies. So they applied math and physics to determine the boundaries of what's possible versus where we are with 4G, or where we were with 4G, and where do we move from there? And as you can see, you have all these boundaries. They are not randomly set. As I said, calculation. So if you look at the two axes, it's pretty simple to understand. As the number of connections on the network or users increases, the data rate per connection or user decrease. And the first thing, as I said, you look at it's Region 1. There is a region that will be totally off limits, and think about a great researcher from Bell Labs, Claude Shannon. Region 5 is pretty much Claude Shannon. And now the other pieces of opportunities moving forward, in the future may actually be our Region 2, because we don't know about that one yet. And will it be 6G? We'll see. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we are in Region 1 with the potential for Region 3 and 4, and that's where the other use cases, massive machine type communication and ultra reliable, low latency types of communication is located. But let's see how we can map out on our side this 5G monetization dilemma. So in Region 1, it's pretty much EMBB, Enhanced Mobile Broadband, that we are dealing with, where literally you have the service providers or communication service providers collecting 5G revenues if they do actually a good job of selling the network and coming up with packages that people are willing to pay for. Then we looked at Region 4 and Region 3 as, the enabler. 5G is the enabler. It means it's not particularly a service provider that is going to collect money for a particular use case. It can be a partnership between a service provider, system integrator, and a vendor. And that makes things complicated, actually, to look at the money. The other thing is 5G is being used in those cases to solve a problem. And that also is leading to the fact that this is not a direct 5G monetization item. 5G helps something, for example, bring efficiencies in a factory. But at the end of the day, we look at it this way. It's the folks who deployed that 5G network who are collecting the money. So what does it mean? It means we have a long tail, actually, of 5G use case. And when you start with EMBB, typically what happens, and we'll see in a few slides, you go after your top paying customers, those who are willing to pay a premium for a 5G service, as long as, again, you have done a good job and you look at their needs, you're trying to come up with very interesting packages that meet their needs. And that's why, we start high with the monetization potential. And then gradually you go after, the rest of your subscriber base. And that's the process we are observing, actually. So it's clear-cut. Region 1 is clear-cut, as I said. The market is cut out for communication service providers. If they do the job, they can have a successful harvest. Then region 3 and region 4. So we started with region 1 back in 2019, but also we saw, a few 5G use cases in factories emerging, particularly in 2019 actually was 4.5G, the Nokia factory. Ericsson joined the Industry 4.0 Lighthouse network of the World Economic Forum in 2021 last year. So a few use cases. It's more complex environment characterized by the need for tight cooperation, partnership between various players to solve a specific issue, as I said. But the good news is, hey, we found some money. So this is an estimation. It's basically doing the math of how many subscribers are out there, 5G subscribers, multiplied by the ARPU. In the case of the US, they show ARPA. And Ericsson did a very comprehensive research, nice piece of research here with the Consumer Lab, showing that this is basically from more than 100 of their customers, looking at them, what they achieved here. Number one, you build a network, you achieve cost efficiency and scale, then you have to look at how to deliver the best smartphone experience. Eventually, you expand the 5G coverage. Then, if you have a fixed, or actually in the case of T-Mobile networks, look, you go after fixed wireless access as well. You beef up the pricing strategy, and then you lead with innovative and immersive services like in Korea, for example. So I suggest, strongly recommend that to look at that piece of research. South Korea is the poster child, as you can see. They really did what Ericsson reported, and if you look at the ARPU, it's looking up. It's fantastic news. In Korea, almost 30% of the subscribers are on 5G at this point. So very strong momentum in Korea. And by the way, we don't know what happened to LGU Plus with that drop in ARPU, but that's okay. In China, ARPU are also looking up. So this is a massive market, as we all know. We have tons of subscribers over there. And the good news is the ARPU actually is increasing. So if you look at, for China Mobile, we have almost 89 RMB ARPUs, which is around $14, but it went up 10%. Same half of that ARPU for China Unicom. So that means pretty much 7%. So that's a good news as well in China, although they are not at the stage of that of the Koreans. But you can see at the bottom that China Mobile is really working hard on coming up with very interesting packages. If you want a world tour of what's going on with 5G in MBB, with region 1 as defined by Bell Labs, you have a table here with a few examples. In the US, for example, it's really FWA, while the rest is DSS. This is the exception, the US exception of starting 5G on the opposite side of the rest of the world. They didn't have mid-band. It's only T-Mobile that after acquiring Sprint had that mid-band and put T-Mobile US in a sweet spot. And in fact, now this is the poster child of real 5G, if you wish, in the US. And the good news is their average revenue per account expressed in US dollars is increasing. AT&T does not publish their ARPA, so we don't know, but at least for T-Mobile and Verizon, it's pretty clear it's going up. And for T-Mobile, it's really 5G, and now they are coming up with the fixed wireless access, which is the 5G service AT&T and Verizon started with in the first place in 2019. So that's interesting because this chart published by OpenSignal last year in June showed that there were not that much traction on the fixed wireless access. So that's, so you're like, oops, there is a problem, but they said that they finished 2021 on a roll. Fortunately, T-Mobile had a goal of 500,000 subscribers, and they ended up the year last year with 646,000 subscribers. So things are also looking up in the US, and we'll hear more than now the C-band is putting at use. Now 5G as the enabler. So I said this one is more complicated. It's a bunch of private 5G wireless networks and services for Industry 4.0 provided by a group of communication service providers, vendors, specialists. It has been very hard actually to measure that space because you have so many private networks. They are typically small deals. So on the one hand, you have GSA saying we collect information about 775 organizations known to be deploying LTE or 5G private wireless network. Okay, so that's the problem. Actually, you still have a lot of LTE and Wi-Fi in there. We have seen Inspirant had published a report saying there is, those private networks are in the few thousand, but these are small deals. So if you do the math, you end up, in the range of $2 billion in revenue, all the way up to, $3 billion, depending on how much you count, because if there is Wi-Fi and LTE in there and 5G, what is the portion of 5G that you are accounting for? That's an issue. And in fact, GSA said 166 are known to be using 5G networks. In this Nokia chart, it's actually the total number. So this is a mix of LTE and 5G in there. They didn't give the breakdown. So that's the problem to crack this nut of finding money, in this area. But we'll get there. Remember the long tail. It's infinite. Us with humans, it's finite, right? You have that base you can go after. But with region 3 and region 4, it's just infinite, and that's the idea of illustrating this with a long tail. We look at China because we have done a lot of research looking at the service providers mentioning potential revenue with what they were doing. So here you see, 6 billion RMBs signed contracts with for China Mobile. That means something like $1 billion. And so they mentioned the 5G lighthouse here, referring to the World Economic Forum's lighthouse of networks, the global lighthouse network that now has 90 factories. We looked at it and we found that less of a dozen actually have 5G networks. And as I said at the beginning, the most spectacular and sophisticated one is actually Ericsson's one in Louisville in Texas, where they manufacture the equipment. So the bottom line is, well, we are on a long journey. It has started. That's the good news. And if you want to be successful in region 1, follow the leader, that is South Korea, but also follow the roadmap delivered by Ericsson, and then we'll get there. And also in R3 and R4, I said we have Wi-Fi and LTE because they are very good for many IoT applications. And case in point, yesterday Nokia was chosen by 450 Connect to supply network technologies for LTE 450 megahertz in Germany. It's LTE, LTE-M. So energy and water companies will be using this. And that's not 5G. And that's the bottom line. 5G is going to have to cohabit with LTE and the rest for a long time. Thank you very much for listening and for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know if you have time for a few questions. I think I am at the end of my slot. So
Stéphane, thank you very much for that presentation. I think we've got time for one question here, and this is in regard to Region 1 enhanced mobile broadband. What do you see as the role of millimeter wave in providing a differentiated enough network experience that operators could potentially peg it to a more premium service tier?
Well, very good question, Sean. Thank you for asking. I forgot about that one because this is exactly what the Koreans are doing. They have been deploying millimeter wave overlay network on top of the 3.5 gigahertz to enhance the experience by providing hotspots, millimeter wave-based hotspots within the 3.5 gigahertz coverage. So yes, strong potential.
And then one other question, Stéphane, regarding regions 3 and 4, where you mentioned there's this just sort of open-ended number of applications, but to successfully deliver them, operators may need to partner with hyperscalers or system integrators, just other stakeholders. Do you feel like there's an opportunity for operators to effectively pivot and go from selling wholesale connectivity to really selling digital services and business outcomes?
Yes, I think so, because if you take Orange Business Services, they are very good at it, of providing the end-to-end service for these types of applications. So this is one example to look at, but there are many other examples throughout the world as well. So yes, they can be successful.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time and your perspective this morning, Stéphane. We really appreciate you sharing the work that you're doing there at LightCounting with us.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure. Anytime. Bye-bye, everyone. Have enjoyed a fantastic 5G monetization day.
Thank you, Stéphane.